All right, everybody. So, like we do in all of our streams, if everybody could say hey and just let me know who's in the stream. All right. So, like I said, if everybody could just let me know who's all in the stream, that'd be awesome. So that I can just know who's here. And like always, if you guys have any questions, please type it in the chat. And then I know what I need to answer as far as if somebody just has a question or if you want to see a specific technique or anything like that. So tonight we're going to go over some Substance Painter stuff. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to load in a test file here. And so first thing, when I open up Substance Painter, I'm going to go ahead and go to File, and I'm going to go to Open Sample. And this is mainly because, just in case you guys wanted to know, I'm going to click on Meet Matte Substance Painter file, and I'm going to hit Open. Okay, and we get our little Meet Matte character. Just in case you guys want to know, there is a contest going on right now for Meet Matte, and there is a whole thing that you can actually work on with him and excuse me, get recognized and all that kind of fun stuff. So just so you guys, if you guys want to see it here real quick, all right, there is a Meet Matte contest that's going on. If you go to the website and type in Meet Matte 2, you can tell that it's running from January 14th to February 4th, and they want you to paint the Meet Matte character, and they've even got a really cool video going over Substance Painter and some of the stuff that they've got going on in it, which I'm going to go over some of the stuff that they go over in that to kind of help out, and it's good information. So I just kind of wanted to break it down and show you some of the stuff that they did, and even to kind of see what they're working on here. So is anybody out there? Anybody out there? All right. So let's go over some of this stuff. So let's start by doing we're going to play around with some normal maps and show you how to actually apply a normal map to one of these. So first things first is we've got our basic layer here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another one, and it's just, this one's a fill layer. I need a basic layer. My bad. So I'm just going to add a layer. It's the same thing as this one, but I'm going to name this one normals. All right. And with this being selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select my brushes, and I'm going to find my basic hard brush, which is good. This is just our basic, this is, brush hard. This is what we're working with here. And I'm just going to paint with the normal maps on this one because I just want to see the normal map. So I'm going to turn off color, height, rough, metal, and leave my normal map on. All right. And then I'm going to come down here to my hard surface, come up here to my hard surface area, and I'm just going to pick something. So let's grab this guy, and I'm going to drop it on the normal map. And I'm going to come over here and select normal. And you can see how just kind of painted that on there. All right. So one thing that I can play with here is that under my alpha, I've got this. I can turn this off so I make sure that I get my shape in here. Make sure that I've got everything set up correctly. All right. So you can see that we've got our normal brush that is working with our character here. All right. So with my brush, I'm going to double check. Let's see, spacing. I want to turn the spacing off because I just want it to be like this. That's good. All right. Make sure spacing's that way. All right. So as we're going along in here, we've got our follow path. We've got all our options for our channels here. And we got our stencil. And we got our normal map, which is what we've kind of picked here. So let's just say if I go to this one, I can see what it's doing here. Now, one thing that they go over that we're going to go over real quick is we can also do things with symmetry. So if I click on this little button right here, this brings up a symmetry option. So when you see this, this is now the symmetry for the shape. And so we can draw on either side of our shape. Okay. So if I do it there, it'll pop up on this one because this is the way right now that this thing's set up. So let's go ahead and do some options. All right, because we got mirror symmetry, it was mirroring in the X. We can mirror it in the Y. Mirror in the X here, so if you draw something over here, it'll flip on that side so you don't have to do it twice. All right, so it's not what we're trying to do with this one. Let's go ahead and go to radial symmetry. I'm going to go ahead and angle 360, change my count, and you can see when I bring it over here, we've got this because our angle's wrong. So if we go Z, we've got that, which is a little weird, right? And that's mainly because we need to move in the manipulator. So if we click on the manipulator and drag this one up, put it right in the center, or as close as we possibly can to the center, we can go here, double check my settings. That should be 360. Don't know why that was the other way. All right. And we can get some options. So that one didn't really work right. So let's do it back here. So now we're getting some detail kind of placed in here. All right. So as we're playing around with this is just there's going to be some options that we're just going to kind of play with. I want to make sure that I get it as close as I possibly can. All right. So then we get our drawing in there. We've lined it up, and we get this cool little normal. Okay. So we can use symmetry to kind of do that kind of fun stuff. We can even have it to where it kind of comes like this, right? So there's different versions of what we're doing, what we're playing with, so we can kind of see how we're getting different shapes. All right. So with that being done the way it is, we get that cool information. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that the way it is, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put another material on it. And we're going to play with this material right here. Let's look for something. We're in the smart materials, so like, what if I choose like steel painted scrap dirty? All right. So you can see I put steel painted scrap dirty. Let's go ahead and crank up we're at 2048. Let's try something different. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Sorry. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and remove this guy right here. Let's find something cool. Dirt. All right. So place the dirt on there, and you notice that when we have that turned on, the normal map disappears. All right. So that's fun. That's what we want. No, it's not. That's not what we want. So we're going to look through here, and we are going to create an anchor point for this, which is going to allow this to kind of work with what we're doing here. So you get this cool detailed stuff into our paint. So if I take this one out, I need this machinery. All right, so let's see if we can't get this information to pop through on here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this and make this as an anchor point, which we'll go into what that does here in a second. And I'm going to bring this down. And at the bottom here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add this to the bottom. And you can now see that I've got my normal map on top of here. But it's not really doing a lot to the actual paint because the paint's just going over top of it. It's not really like figuring out that the detail and all the smart material settings is not really working the way we want it to. All right. So we've got this set up as normal map. We've got our machinery and all that kind of fun stuff. Here, though, we've got this set up as our blending mode for our machinery, which is we have our base color, which is normal, all that kind of fun stuff. Multiply dirt. You can see all the different dust and rust. So let's say like this one, you know, you wanted this to be part of what's going on here. You want this to show what it's doing. Okay, you want the dirt to be, the rust and stuff to be in the center of this. So like let's say first off, before we do anything, we're going to play around with some of this stuff. So the rust on here, we'll go to the mask editor and we're going to play around with some of the texture. You can play with curvature, get it to be more dirty, less dirty. Play with this one. And even our metal base right here, we can change the color. If we wanted something a little more orange, you know, we can play around with it. So all these things, obviously you can play with like normal because that's what, basically that's what we do. And then at the bottom here, we have our normal thing, which is the thing we made. All right. And we need to be able to put all that little detail, all the edge qualities and all the dirt and crap and grime and all that in those creases. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off because this is annoying me. We can always put it back on later. All right. So now that we've got this, and this is our normal, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that we're in the normal height here. And we see that this one right here is set up for our blending mode. It's set up for normal map detail, which is what we want. So then we come up here and we check and we see, okay, here's our blending mode. It's set to normal map normal. That's what we want. But we want to use this for like dust and dirt and all this kind of stuff. So for the dirt and the rust, let's go ahead and we'll use for the rust here. And we're going to go and scroll down to the options. All right. And we're going to look down here at this micro normal level. Okay. What we're going to do is when we click on it, it's going to give us options. So we can click over here on anchor point and click normals, which it's already kind of given us the name for it. Okay. We're going to click OK and it put it in there. We're going to say we're going to use, it says reference channel. We're going to use the normal because that's what we painted, which was normal. And then we're going to scroll back up and we're going to go to the micro details in here, which is usually closed. So we will go ahead and click this. All right. And in micro normal, we're going to hit it on. So if you noticed, you can see how the detail now lit up and it actually has dirt and grime inside the stuff we painted. So that's pretty cool because now that means that with that set up, you can come in here to this normal section here and we can paint other things. So if we wanted to paint some more hard surface stuff, we can now paint these areas here. We'll turn this back on for right now. And let's go to our brush. So we want to play with our brush settings and we're going to change the normal for what we were doing from before. So let's do this one. There we go. So real quick, up here in the top left, there is cursor. So you have crosshair, brush outline cursor, which just gives you what the brush outline is supposed to be, and then full preview cursor, which is what this is, which is what we needed to be doing. My apologies. I was kind of freaking out because I didn't know what was going on. So if we go control, left, and right, we'll do the flow. Up and down, we'll do the actual rotation. And as we've got this kind of set up, we can click and it will give us our radial. So you can see now that we've built that, now we get all this cool detail and stuff into it like right now. And because we've already built it and built it into the mask so that it'll actually sit there and hold up its shape and do that. Again, if anybody's there, just let me know that you're there by just typing in the chat so I know who's all there. All right, so now we've got this information kind of built in, and we can keep on kind of playing around with it, seeing what works, what doesn't work. Let's just say we did, for instance, I don't know, let me find that guy. I'm going to scale this guy down, go to the outside, click the button, and now we get some bolts. All right, so this will now have grime and dirt and dust and all that kind of fun stuff with the bolts in there. All right, and you can always go back to not having symmetry if you didn't want symmetry on it. All right, and then that'll help you build your different shapes. Hey, Alex. Okay, glad you're here. So as we're building all these different shapes and different textures, you can see that we're just still painting on this one normal map, and we can go in and just keep kind of adding stuff that we want to paint. So again, just kind of looking, seeing what I want to do. Here's a cool vent. Do I want to paint the vent? Vent actually is kind of a cool idea. I think I'm going to change the vent though. There's got to be a directional one. I know there's a directional vent. So we can come in here, we can build, let's do this one. And yeah, this one. This is what I want. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate this guy to be right about here. And because we still have radial turned on, it's going to plant it all over. And we're getting dust and grime and crap like that inside of it. Okay, so another thing we want to play with is, let's go back to bringing back our map. We'll go back to brushes and we'll click basic hard and it'll reset it back to our basic hard brush. Now, let's say if we wanted to add some more dirt or something to this, we could go in and we could add some more generators and stuff like that. So let's, for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this off for right now. And we're going to put on, let's put on a material here. So let's say, for instance, that I wanted to use like this, what do you want to do? Titanium steel rough. Let's do steel rough. So I'm going to put on steel rough, and then I'm going to put some steel painted over it. Okay, so now I've got steel rough and steel painted over top of it. Bring this up. Let's make it red, because why not? I seem to like the red one. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do, I'm going to go back to my base color. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint some information in here using generators, okay? So if I right click on this and I go add a black mask, now all we see is the, let me turn this off too. All we see is the metal, right? So when we put the paint on here, so if I go ahead and add a paint layer, and then this is stuff you guys have done before, you can see we get painted metal in here, blah, blah, blah. We've done this a bunch of times. Now this is just going to be a little different. Now we can stack generators, which will allow us to do different things. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the paint, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a generator. And the generator's empty, so I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do dripping rust. All right, to get like this kind of random spray, we can play around with some of these options because we want to kind of, we always want to play around with the options, make sure everything's good to go. All right, so I'm going to play around with some of that. Drip intensity, spreading. So we're just going to play around with it till we get something that looks good. We're not really going for anything specific right now, but we can kind of, play around with it. So let's say now that I've done this, I want to add another one because I like this, but I want something like on the corners to where something's like been beat up. So if I click back on the mask and I go ahead and I add another generator, click this. Doesn't like me right now. Hold on. Okay, click this, and I'm going to do metal edge. All right. So now if you noticed, the metal edge is overwriting the other part we just did. Now we don't want that, okay, because we want both of them. I don't want just that one piece. I want both of them. So what I can do is I can change the blending mode, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do, it likes me today. It really does. And I'm going to do linear dodge, which is an additive thing. Now, one thing you may notice is that now I've got paint on the corners, but I don't have it the other way. So what I can do is in my metal edgeware, if I invert this, now we're getting the steel painted showing up with the dripping rust on top of it. So it's actually just kind of playing around in that one little area. All right, so if I go ahead and I move this, and I take this to be an add, and we can play around with this, we can see how we're getting some different values in our shape here. All right, so you can go in and you can stack generators that allow you to do different things. It is not liking me today. All right, so you can kind of go through that and kind of play with some of those options because that's what's going to give you our different shapes and all that kind of, or different generators and all that, which is going to give you some different pieces here. So this metal edgeware will turn off from random, dripping rust. So now we get what we're looking at for here. All right, and so then when we play with our dripping rust, let's rust spreading, right? And we go back to our metal edgeware. We can see how we're getting different values. Okay, so now when I turn it off, that's what we're really trying to get. The metal edgeware would actually be, the more I think about it, the worse off I feel like it would be because we want to see the steel through it, and then dripping rust is going to help because it's going to be black. So let's try this. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to take this away. Metal edgeware, click on this, inverse it. I'm going to play with some of the values, make the contrast a little bit more, wear level. Let's go like that. Grunge scale. That's good. Grunge amount. Tweak that. So let's say you wanted to break that edge up just a little bit more. This is where you can come in and we can add another one. So if we add the generator, click on this. Let's see, curvature, dirt, fiberglass. Let's try that. Take this, and love how it's working right now. Go to linear dodge. Now you can see how we're getting edge qualities in here. And we can tone this guy back to where it's adding in through the edge quality. Okay? So I'm getting some different values and different things by stacking generators. So hopefully that, kind of explain, hopefully it helps. stacking generators and kind of working with that, because that'll help you as you're working and as you're going along. Turn these guys off for right now. Go back to that. So as you can tell, we can kind of play around with that stuff. There's another thing you can also do. You can also copy and paste. So you have two options. You can paste a layer or paste a layer as an instance. And if you do it as an instance, it'll remain as the way that we built it from the beginning. So for this one, if we just paste the layer, it'll load it in. We don't want it to paste exactly like this from the other part, because we want to be able to do stuff to it. So if we come in here and we start playing around with that and playing around with the options and things like that, we can go through and we can play with things. So like the rust, we'll go to the mask here and we can start to play around with our global balance stuff. We can do it with our contrast, make it sharper, shinier, you know, all that kind of fun stuff, which will help you get these shapes kind of cleared up and get some new materials on here. And then you can even do the same thing for the base. And then again, you would play around. The rest is a little crazy. So I could select the mask editor for the rest, and we would bring back we can even bring the invert if we wanted it to be more rusty on the bottom. And you can see, because we were using the same thing that we used before, you can even see how this has got like the little normal map on it here, right? So we can play around with some of these. You can even adjust some of the textures that you want to play with, as you can tell as it's working down here, which will give you all different shapes and materials, ambient occlusion, right? So you can just literally sit here and play it. Okay, so you, Alex, you asked if you only want 0.25 of the edge to be worn. Could you do that? What do you mean by that, Alex? 0.25 of what edge? So we can play around with all these settings. My biggest advice to you is just grab settings and start pulling on things to see what it's doing. Okay, if I think I know what you're talking about, Alex, where you're saying you want to just have a certain area be worn. Yeah, that's what you can do. You can add like a certain area to where it would just be worn on a certain part of your object. So let's do this. So let's say, let's remove that one and remove the body one here, just because I don't want to do this. All right, so like with the head, okay, so let's just turn this guy off and we'll turn this back on. If you just wanted a certain amount to be worn, then you could come into the settings here, and this is where you would play around with wear levels and stuff like that. All right, so there could be only, like, if you just want a certain amount of this, that's where you could kind of go through and play with that. But you can also do things like, this is what happens when you paint, when you don't fix your stuff. That's why we work layers. That's why we work in layers. All right, so if I was to come in here and I was to do a generator, we'll do another one, and let's just do like a curvature. Okay, so this is going to give us any kind of weird stuff. This is just going to give us the corners. Okay, so the balance is here. Okay, so like this is global blur, this is contrast. So you could come in here and put like 0.25, hit enter, and then that would give you 0.25 if that's what you're talking about. Hopefully, I don't know for sure. And then if you just wanted that to be on there, if you do the invert, then that would be paint and then not paint, which would be the steel. which that would be 0.25 of what you're doing, if that makes sense, and if that's what you're asking. So that's just basically giving you a curvature around the edge of 0.25 for everything that you're working on. And then this is where you can come in and you can add more. Let's do, I don't know, it's not metal edge wear. Dirt. And then anything that's got the paint on it here is going to be kind of worn through. Like you're going to see it on here. All right. And then so that's where you can kind of see this. But because we only have so little, it would have to be flipped. So if we did this though, and let's do a copy of a mask. Did that not work? Why didn't that work? Oh, because I didn't have a mask. You gotta have a mask. Paste into mask. Boom. And boom. All right. So now we have the paint and then the steel on top of it here. And if you wanted the paint to roll through, then this is where you can come in here and you can start to play with the dirt level and the contrast. And you can see how we're getting this information now. If that makes sense. Hopefully that's what it was. I was just using, to my example, I was talking about circular edge. Paint is worn off all the way around. Okay, so you're asking only if part of an edge can show wear. It can. You can do it with a paint layer, or you can do it with another option. So, like let's say I wanted to do, let's say I had this, right? And I wanted to show like the bottom of it to be painted, or maybe the top to be worn and the bottom to be painted because of, I don't know, sun damage or something, right? So if we go through here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play at this just a little bit. Let's do this. Just want to kind of get some of this value in here, the dirt as well. All right, so let's say that I wanted to kind of make this so where that only wears up from the bottom. All right, so what I can do is on this layer here, we add another generator, and I am going to do linear gradient. All right, so you notice how it's red here and then it kind of goes up to be here. Go ahead and do the same thing we've been doing. Click here, go to add, and then what we can do is we can start to play with the balance here and the contrast, and you can see how we're getting not so much up here but some stuff down there. All right, and this is all based off the UVs. Remember, you'd have to change this to like a linear dodge or an add so that you can see the multiple generators run through, right? So then that would give this your look that you're going for. And the way that it's doing it is based off of this position map that we baked earlier, and then that'll give us the information that we want and how it's like kind of dirty and messed up and beat up and all that kind of stuff, and that'll go into what you're trying to get for later on, or what you're trying to accomplish. Like if you wanted to just kind of add a little bit of this paint in here and then put something else in there, that would be how you could kind of get that. So for this week, you guys are working on the painting of the TV. So I graded modeling fundamentals this week, or I mean this today. So tomorrow I will be grading the paint assignments where you guys are going to be showing off your TV. So I want you guys, when you guys are doing this, I want you guys to all be painting on your TV and doing all the lovely little things we go over in the videos, but also look at maybe incorporating some new stuff into your paints, and you know, don't be afraid to kind of play around with some interesting things that we're going to be kind of playing around with here. So let's play with something different. We got moss. Look at that. That's cool. Let's do. I don't want to do any more car paint. Plastic fabric. Why not? So we've got this plastic fabric. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the scale. So maybe we'll do, I don't know, 5. Well, that's cool. So he looks like he's like kind of the Michelin Man. So we've got the fabric in here, and we've got this kind of stretched out around him, and we can go in and we can start playing around with some of this stuff like we would normally do. I could do something like plastic PVC over top, right? And we get different colors, and so like how it's that color versus the plastic fold. Play with this. Right. So then we can kind of do the same thing we were doing here. You can add a generator or a filter. Let's go ahead and we'll add this generator here. We'll do the dripping, and you can see the interesting effect we get with the normal, because it's doing rust. Looks like he's made out of foam, which might be an interesting effect for what you guys are trying to do, just in case you wanted to do something weird. All right, this is probably not going to work for what I want to do it for. Let's try fiberglass. And we can see how the fiberglass is giving us this effect. We can even do wear levels. Let's do this, wear contrast. We'll tone that back so that I get kind of an even kind of feeling over here, which will help you get some of these different kind of grip and material stuff going on here. Now, one thing we can do too, which is something we don't really talk about a lot, is like, let's look at the base, and then let me play with something here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's say that I put an iron like rough on here, okay? Just a metal material on my substance painter, nothing too crazy, just kind of, it's in there showing off the damaged area there. So one thing we can do is we could add a filter. So if I go ahead and I do what I was doing before, and I go ahead and I add a filter, filter's going to come in empty, and we're going to click to select the filter. Now, with the filter, with us selecting a filter, just be aware that the stuff with a checkerboard is more like we're going to use it for a what do you call it? A mask. Can't think of the word. We're going to use it on a mask. The ones with the color, and what I mean by color is like these solid color things here. This would be working on the actual material. Okay, so we have FX damages, we've got oil paint, we've got peeling paint, stuff like that. So if I was to do kind of an oil paint, it's going to catch up with me here. And it now looks like there's oil paint on it, and then you can kind of come in here and you can set some parameters. So we're going to do high detail. I honestly have never done this before, so I don't know what this is going to do. All right, but you can see it's giving us swirls. All right, and then input tile is the base color. So the base color for this iron is this. So if I was to do something like let's go ahead and if I was to do like a metal material, like I could actually bring, or not metal, but something with some color in it, I could actually paint with it. All right, so you could put that, let's say you loaded in an image and you put that on there, that's going to make it look like oil paint. So let's try another one, something that we could actually use. So let's grab, what is this one? Water drops, will that do it? Look at that. So this just added water drops and a filter to where our material is. So even for something like up here, if you were to add that, so like let's go to the head. All right, and at the, let's do here, we're going to be on the color because we're going to be using that. I'm going to go ahead and right click, add a filter. Filter's empty, click on here, drive down, we're going to do water drops. And now it's compounded through all the normal map stuff that we were playing with, and it looks crazy. Because it's now deteriorating all this stuff over here. So let's get rid of that one. What if we did it on this one? Let's see what happens. There we go. So now we got water drops on our face of our mask, right? So you can do presets, low amount slope, high amount slope, and it will change the values for what you're doing. Let's do medium. All right. Seed can be random, drops amount. You can add more, add less. High amount, no slope. All right. So we can play around with this, and this is also probably being affected by this because this is over the mask here. So if I take off the 3D linear gradient, I'll play with that. Let's do this. So as you can tell, as you can tell, there's tons of things that we can play around with, and they've got filters and all sorts of fun and exciting things that we can kind of play with and get all these different shapes and different materials in here to build this. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to do a new scene. Actually, I'm going to open a sample scene. Open sample. Preview sphere. Let's check it out. What is the preview sphere? I have no idea, honestly. Oh, look at that. The thing I spent time building. Alright, so let's check this out. I just want to see. Very interesting. Okay, so sorry about that. I was just trying to figure out what was going on there. So we can start to play around with some of these ones on here. We got Anthropy and Bronze Armor, so we could turn these guys off, and we could do something completely different. Let's do Metallic Car. Why not? Look at that. That's crazy. All right, let's undo that. We're just testing some of these out. Change the settings. Is there anything that you'd like to see, Alex? There we go. That one's nice. All right, so let's do some paint on this one with the fill layer because I just went over it. It'll actually take the normal map, which is good. And then with the fill layer, we can go in and we can adjust our color. Let's try something different today. Excuse me. All right, cool. So we've got that kind of added in here. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll do another black mask. We'll do something. What are we going to do? We'll add. Let's do a position. Let's see if this gives me some interesting effects. Alright, so let's play with that. And then use texture on. I'm going to try to see if I can do something interesting with this. Let's try procedurals. And I am going to do directional. Drag that into this texture. What is that going to give me? Probably not going to do half of what I thought I was going to do. No, it didn't. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's add one else. I'm just kind of figuring this out as we go here. Do dirt. Again, we will switch this to add, and you can see how we're adding in the position with this one, which is good. Let's see if we can't adjust some of the dirt. Let's see, curvature, micro normal. I don't want to play with that right now. So you can see how I'm kind of getting this like interesting like kind of paint in the corners thing. Let's go ahead, let's do this. Let's take these off. Go ahead and play with this one around. Play around with the wear contrast, stuff like that, so we get some interesting kind of effects here. And then so one thing, just so you guys are aware, as you're playing around with these values here, if you wanted to paint something on here, you can always add another paint layer, but the thing is like you want to make sure that the paint layer is always on top. All right, so when we do this, you can come in here to the brushes, and it's like the same stuff we've been doing from before. You can kind of add in some values and kind of paint your own stuff that can kind of go wherever it needs to be. If you needed it to be like, you know, you're trying to get a specific look, right? You can always adjust, do whatever settings that you need to do, just like we would normally be doing, just getting in these values for what we're trying to do. And then if you hit X, it'll switch to the inverse, so you can even come back and kind of tweak some of the settings. You can see I'm taking away some paint because I'm in the black and I'm painting black, and you hit X again and it'll bring back. You can even do like charcoal. All right, so just make sure that that's up at the top, and then as you're doing stuff, you can actually bring stuff together. So if we do this, we add another generator. Let's do, I don't know, light. Put this below the paint, and then this one is going to be my add. You can see now how I'm getting that information here, but it's cutting off as it's going further away from the light. And I don't know if this will work, but will it change based off of this light? No, it's based off of this light. Okay. But you can see how we can get values and how you can do different things with this light. Just curious if that worked, was all. All right. So again, we're back down to 10 minutes. Alex, since you're the only one here, if you have any questions, please let me know. If you don't, that's fine too. I just figured I'd ask away. All right, I will see you guys later.